There's one word that quietly separates those who succeed from those who quit. Consistency. Not talent, not luck, not intelligence, but the ability to show up again and again and again. Think about it. We admire athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, not because they had one lucky moment, but because they kept going long after the excitement wore off. The truth is simple. Anyone can start. Very few can stay. You felt it before. The alarm rings. Your body says stay in bed. Your mind whispers, skip it today. One day won't matter. But deep down you know that's a trap. Because one day becomes 2. 2 days become 2 weeks. And suddenly the dream you swore you'd fight for slips away. Consistency is not about motivation. It's about discipline. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is a firewood. Without discipline, that spark burns out fast. Imagine pushing a heavy cart. At first, it feels impossible. It barely moves. You're sweating, straining, almost ready to quit. But if you keep pushing inch by inch, suddenly the cart gains momentum. It gets lighter, faster, easier. That's how consistency works. The hardest part is the beginning. But if you force yourself through those first painful steps, momentum will eventually carry you. So let me ask you, do you only want results when you feel like it? Or do you want results because you refuse to quit no matter how you feel? Every great transformation, whether it's your body, your mind, your business, or your life, was built on small, repetitive actions that felt boring in the moment. Showing up to the gym when nobody noticed. Writing 1 page a day when nobody cared. Saving a little money when nobody believed it mattered. That's what builds greatness. Consistency means betraying your comfort. It means saying no to excuses, no to laziness, no to the old version of yourself. It's not easy, but neither is staying stuck. Neither is living with regret. And between the pain of discipline and the pain of regret, discipline is always lighter. Force yourself to be consistent. Force yourself to show up even when it hurts. Force yourself to take action even when no one claps. Because every time you show up, you're not just building results. You're building identity. You're proving to yourself that you are reliable, that you are unstoppable, that you are the kind of person who doesn't quit. And when you live that way, consistency is no longer a burden. It becomes who you are. So the next time your mind says, not today, whisper back, watch me. Here are some key points related to this. Success is built on consistency, not talent or luck. Motivation fades. Discipline sustains. Momentum comes only after forcing yourself to start. Small, repeated actions compound into big results. Discipline is painful, but regret hurts more. Consistency builds identity, confidence, and unstoppable progress. Success is built on consistency, not talent or luck. That truth may sound simple, almost cliche, but if you look closely at every great story of achievement, you'll see it written between the lines. Talent is flashy, it's noticeable, it's something people point to and say, that's why they made it. Luck is mysterious, unpredictable. The thing people use to explain someone else's success, so they don't have to face their own lack of progress. But consistency, that's invisible. It's the part of the story no one applauds. The countless days when nobody is watching, nobody is clapping, nobody is telling you you're special. And yet, it's the one ingredient that makes all the difference. Think of the student who starts the year with a brilliant mind but never studies after the first week. At the beginning, they shine. They impress their teachers. They make everyone believe they're destined for greatness. But slowly, quietly, their lack of repetition catches up. Another student, not as naturally gifted, sits at the desk every night, reviews notes, solves problems one by one. At first, no one notices the second student. No one praises them. But over months, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. While the talented one burns out, the consistent one builds. And by the end, the one who refused to miss a day rises higher. That's what consistency does. It beats raw talent when talent refuses to show up. There's a quote from Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. People love repeating that quote, but most ignore what it demands. If you are what you repeatedly do, then your daily choices, small, quiet, unseen, define you more than any single victory or dramatic breakthrough. Success is not a lightning strike. It's a dripping faucet, drop by drop, moment by moment, action by action. And when the world finally notices, it looks sudden. It looks like luck. But in truth, it was years of unseen effort. Think about athletes for a moment. We celebrate their trophies, their medals, the moment they stand on the podium. But what about the mornings they woke up before sunrise, the nights when they trained with aching muscles, the times they said no to parties, no to distractions, no to comfort? Luck did not make them champions. Talent alone did not make them champions. Consistency did. Michael Jordan once said, "I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." What he didn't say, but lived every day, is that the only reason he could fail so many times was because he kept showing up. Even on the days when failure felt unbearable, he forced himself to return to the court. That is a quiet, unglamorous power of consistency. Imagine planting a seed in the soil. You water it one day, then forget for weeks. Will it grow? Of course not. But if you water it every day, faithfully, without expecting instant results, something invisible begins to happen. Beneath the soil, roots spread, a system strengthens, and one day the green tip of a sprout appears. People who pass by might say, "How lucky, the plant grew." But you know better. You were there every single day, pouring water, believing in something you couldn't yet see. That is how success looks from the outside. It looks like magic. From the inside, it's just consistency. And yet, most people sabotage themselves by chasing the high of motivation. They start the gym on January 1st, full of energy, posting pictures, buying new clothes. By February, the excitement is gone. By March, the gym card is collecting dust. Why? Because they relied on feeling good to keep them consistent. But feelings are fickle. Discipline is not. Consistency asks you to show up even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it, even when nobody is cheering you on. That's why it's so powerful, because a majority quit when the fun disappears. Take writers as another example. Everyone says, "I want to write a book someday." They talk about ideas. They dream about being published. They romanticize inspiration. But ask any author who has actually finished a book, and they'll tell you the truth. They didn't wait for inspiration. They sat at the desk every day, even when the words felt dry, even when the sentences were terrible. Page by page, the book grew, and while thousands of others were waiting for the perfect moment, the consistent one created the perfect outcome. There's a man named James Clear who wrote Atomic Habits. He said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." What are systems? Really? They are nothing but consistent actions repeated daily. A system is brushing your teeth every morning and night. A system is writing for 30 minutes no matter what. A system is saving a percentage of your income every month. Over time, systems build outcomes. Consistency builds results. Think back to your own life. How many times have you started something with fire and passion, only to watch it fade away? Maybe you try to learn a language, but after a few weeks of missing lessons, the dream dissolved. Maybe you promised yourself you'd save money, but after a few impulse buys, the account returned to zero. The dream didn't fail because it was impossible. It failed because the consistency wasn't there. Now, picture the alternative. Imagine if you did one small thing every single day toward that goal. Just one. Not 100. Not perfect. Just one. Over a year, that's 365 actions. Over 5 years, that's more than 1,800. Can you imagine the compounding power of that? That's the difference between wishing and winning. It's tempting to look at others and say, they're lucky. They were born talented. They had the right opportunities. But what if I told you their secret wasn't luck or talent? What if I told you the difference was simply that they refused to stop showing up? The truth is, talent without consistency is wasted. Luck without consistency is wasted. Even opportunity without consistency is wasted. Consistency is the only thing that turns raw material into finished masterpieces. And maybe that's why consistency feels so difficult. Because it demands humility. It demands that you keep doing something even when it's boring, even when no one notices, even when progress feels invisible. That kind of persistence takes courage. But that courage pays off in ways no one can take away. When people finally see the result, they'll call it luck. They'll say you were gifted. They'll try to explain it away because it makes them comfortable. But you'll know the truth. You'll know the nights you stayed in, the mornings you forced yourself up, the endless repetition no one else witnessed. You'll know it wasn't luck. It was consistency. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is what sustains progress. It's easy to get fired up after watching a motivational video or hearing a powerful speech. In that moment, you feel unstoppable, like nothing can get in your way. Your chest tightens with energy. Your mind races with plans. And you swear to yourself that this time will be different. But what happens when the video ends, when the music stops, when the energy fades and life hits you with ordinary mornings and long days? What happens when the excitement you felt last night disappears the moment the alarm clock rings? That is where most people fall. They rely on motivation as fuel, not realizing that motivation burns fast, like a matchstick. Discipline, on the other hand, is like coal. It burns slow, steady, and strong. Think about New Year's resolutions. Millions of people wake up on January 1st convinced this will be their year. They buy gym memberships, planners, fancy equipment, and for the first week or two, the gyms are crowded, notebooks are filled, spirits are high. But then February arrives and the fire dims. The excitement that once felt electric is gone, replaced by tired bodies, sore muscles, and the mundane repetition of real effort. Slowly, people quit. They say things like, "I lost motivation," as if motivation was supposed to stay forever. But the truth is, motivation was never meant to carry you the whole way. It was only the spark to light the fire. Discipline is what keeps it burning. There's a famous Navy SEAL saying, "Discipline equals freedom." At first, that sounds strange. How can discipline, something that feels like rules, structure, even limitation, equal freedom? But look closer. The person who disciplines themselves to save money has the freedom later to buy what they want, to travel where they please, to live without debt chaining them down. The person who disciplines themselves to exercise daily has the freedom later to move without pain, to live longer, to play with their children and grandchildren without struggling to catch their breath. The student who disciplines themselves to study when they'd rather be on social media has the freedom later to choose a career instead of being forced into one. Motivation can't give you that kind of freedom. Only discipline can. Let's take an example from sports. Imagine a boxer preparing for a championship fight. Motivation might get him into the gym on day one, but it's discipline that keeps him there for months, training when his body aches, when his hands are bruised, when his lungs are burning. If he depended on feeling motivated, he'd never last. But discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It demands that you show up regardless. And that's what builds champions. Mike Tyson once said, "Discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it." That's the difference. Motivation wants comfort. Discipline doesn't care. Discipline says, "Do it anyway." Now let's bring it closer to everyday life. Imagine two friends decide to start running. On the first day, both are excited. They put on new shoes, track their miles, maybe even post a picture online. 1 week later, it rains. The first friend says, "Not today. I don't feel motivated in this weather." The second friend ties their shoes anyway and runs through the rain. Months later, guess who is fitter, stronger, faster? The difference isn't talent or luck. It's discipline. The second friend didn't wait to feel like running. They ran because it was a commitment they made. Motivation was gone, but discipline kept them moving forward. The danger relying on motivation is that it makes success conditional. You only work when you feel good. You only show up when the sun is shining, when your mood is right, when life feels smooth. But real progress doesn't wait for the perfect mood. Life doesn't pause until you're ready. If you only act when motivated, you'll spend most of your life waiting, not building. Think about a writer again. Some of the most famous authors in history had strict daily routines. Ernest Hemingway wrote every morning, whether inspiration visited him or not. Stephen King writes 2,000 words every day, Even on holidays. Do you think they're motivated every single time they sit down? No, they're disciplined. They know the book won't write itself. So they show up regardless of how they feel. And because they show up, the work gets done and greatness is created. Discipline is also about trust. When you keep showing up for your goals, even when you don't feel like it, you begin to trust yourself. You stop making empty promises. You start proving day by day that you can be relied on. That trust builds confidence. That confidence builds momentum. And that momentum eventually creates results so powerful that others start calling you lucky when really you were simply disciplined. There's a story of a soldier who once said that in battle, motivation disappears within the first few minutes. Fear, exhaustion, and chaos wipe away any initial excitement. What keeps soldiers alive, what keeps them moving, is discipline, the training that drilled actions into them until they became second nature. In life, it's not war, but the principle is the same. Motivation fades quickly in the face of hardship, but discipline keeps you standing when everything else is falling apart. You probably had days where you said to yourself, I don't feel like it today. Maybe it was work, maybe it was exercise, maybe it was studying, and maybe you gave into that feeling. But think about the times you didn't. Think about the days you showed up anyway. How did you feel afterward? Proud, stronger, accomplished. That's the reward discipline gives. It may feel heavy at the start, but it always feels lighter in hindsight. The truth is, motivation is like a friend who shows up when the party is fun, but leaves when it gets hard. Discipline is a friend who stays with you through the mess, through the struggle, through the silence. Discipline doesn't care if you're tired, sad, unmotivated, or scared. Discipline cares about the promise you made to yourself. That's why those who master discipline eventually surpass those who only chase motivation. Because motivation is seasonal, discipline is eternal. Motivation is emotional, discipline is logical. Motivation is fragile, discipline is unshakable. And when you understand this, you stop waiting to feel ready, and you start building regardless of readiness. So when you wake up tomorrow and you don't feel like showing up, remember this. Motivation may have left, but discipline is always waiting for you. And if you lean on discipline long enough, it becomes who you are. It becomes the reason people look at you and wonder, how do they keep going? They'll call it strength. They'll call it determination. But you'll know it's simply the power of doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in life, and it only comes after you force yourself to start. At the beginning, everything feels heavy. The goal looks far away. The steps look endless, and the effort seems too much for too little reward. Think of a giant rock sitting on the ground. At first, when you put your hands against it and push, nothing moves. Your arms ache, your legs shake, and you wonder if it's even worth it. But if you keep leaning in, if you keep pushing with every ounce of strength, eventually the rock begins to shift. At first, it's just an inch, barely noticeable. But then another inch, and then a foot, and suddenly the rock that felt impossible to move is rolling. And once it rolls, it doesn't just move, it carries itself with its own weight. That's the magic of momentum. The hardest part is the beginning, but the reward comes after you refuse to quit at the start. Imagine someone deciding to change their health. On the first day at the gym, everything feels awkward. The weights are unfamiliar. The body resists. The mirror shows no change. By the second week, soreness makes every step painful. By the third week, the temptation to stop is overwhelming. Many people quit right there, convinced it's not working. But the ones who keep going push past that invisible wall. Somewhere in the fourth or fifth week, something happens. The body starts to adjust. The soreness fades quicker. The exercises feel smoother. Energy levels rise. Momentum begins. What felt like torture at the start becomes routine, and soon, even enjoyable. The results still aren't dramatic, but the motion is steady. Weeks later, friends notice a difference. Months later, strangers see it. Momentum carried them where motivation alone never could. There's a reason Newton's law of motion resonates beyond physics. An object at rest stays at rest. An object in motion stays in motion. It applies not just to science, but to our lives. If you're sitting still, waiting for the perfect moment to begin, you'll likely stay stuck. But the moment you take action, no matter how small, you set things in motion. And once you're moving, it becomes easier to keep moving. Success belongs not to the one who waits for inspiration, but to the one who forces themselves to push past the stillness and break into motion. Think of writing a book. On day one, staring at the blank page feels unbearable. Words don't come. Ideas feel flat. Self-doubt screams louder than creativity. If the writer quits, the story dies. But if the writer says, I will write 1 page today, even if it's terrible, they break the barrier. Day after day, 1 page turns into chapters. Chapters turn into a draft. And then something shifts. The act of writing becomes easier. The ideas flow faster. The habit feels natural. Momentum carries them. And what once felt impossible now feels unstoppable. That book wasn't written in a day of passion. It was written by forcing consistency until momentum took over. The same is true in business. Imagine an entrepreneur starting from nothing. The first calls go unanswered. The first emails are ignored. The first product barely sells. Many would give up at this stage, saying, it's not working. But those who persist, who keep calling, keep emailing, keep improving, eventually notice a shift. One client says yes, then another, then word spreads. Suddenly the phone that was once silent is ringing. The inbox that was empty is full. The product that no one wanted is in demand. Momentum has taken over. And when momentum is on your side, it feels like the world itself is pushing with you. Momentum doesn't just build progress. It builds confidence. The more you do something, the more you prove to yourself that you can. At first, doubt is loud. You can't do this. You'll never last. You're not good enough. But with each small win, doubt weakens. Each repetition silences the voice of fear. You start to realize that the hardest enemy was never the task. It was your own hesitation. Once momentum is on your side, hesitation loses its power. There's a story of a man who wanted to climb a mountain. Standing at the bottom, the peak looked impossible, hidden by clouds miles above the ground. Every step felt exhausting at the start, his legs heavy, his lungs burning. He almost quit, convinced he would never make it. But as he kept walking, his body adjusted. His breathing found a rhythm. His muscles found strength. Each step became easier than the one before. Halfway up, he realized something extraordinary. He wasn't just climbing anymore. He was being pulled forward by the very rhythm he had created. Momentum was carrying him, step by step, closer to the top. When he finally stood at the summit, he realized the secret wasn't strength alone. It was refusing to stop when progress seemed invisible. That's what makes momentum so beautiful. It starts invisible. You don't see results at first. You don't feel progress. And that's why so many people quit. They think nothing is happening. But momentum is like water heating in a kettle. For a long time, it looks the same. Degrees rise slowly, silently. Then suddenly, at 100 degrees, it boils. The steam bursts out. People see the change and think it happened in a moment. But really, it was the slow, patient build of heat all along. Your efforts are like that heat. Every repetition, every attempt, every action adds energy, even if you don't see the boil yet. The challenge is that momentum demands faith. You have to keep pushing when nothing seems to move. You have to keep showing up when no one is watching. You have to keep going when the results are invisible. That's why momentum belongs to the disciplined, not the motivated. Motivation will tell you to quit if results don't show up fast. Discipline will tell you to keep going until the results can no longer be denied. When you think about your own life, ask yourself, how many times did I quit just before momentum was about to begin? How many times did I stop watering the seed before it was ready to sprout? How many times did I walk away from a rock before it started to roll? Those missed moments weren't failures. They were unfinished beginnings. The truth is, once momentum is on your side, the game changes. What was once hard becomes easier. What was once exhausting becomes energizing. What once required force now flows almost naturally. That is a reward of pushing to the beginning, of forcing yourself to start even when it feels impossible. Because momentum doesn't just move projects forward, it moves people forward. It transforms you from someone who struggles to begin into someone who refuses to stop. And maybe that's the ultimate power of momentum. It doesn't just carry your actions, it reshapes your identity. You stop being the person who waits for motivation, and you become the person who creates motion. You stop being the person who quits when it's hard, and you become the person who knows the hardest part is temporary. You stop seeing obstacles as walls and start seeing them as the slope before the roll. That identity is priceless, because once you know how to create momentum in one area of life, you can create it in every area. Fitness, work, relationships, learning, growth. Momentum is the invisible engine behind them all. So the next time you're standing at the beginning of something, staring at the heavy rock that refuses to move, remember this truth. The wait is only temporary. The struggle is only the start. If you push long enough, if you refuse to quit, the rock will roll, the seed will sprout, the kettle will boil, and momentum will carry you further than you ever imagined. Every great transformation in life is built on small, repetitive actions that often feel boring in the moment. The human mind is wired to crave big breakthroughs, dramatic leaps, overnight success stories. We want to go from poor to rich, weak to strong, unnoticed to celebrated in a flash. But real change never works like that. It is built in the quiet, ordinary, often unnoticed routines that most people overlook because they seem too small to matter. The truth is, it's not the grand gestures that create lasting transformation. It's the daily discipline that feels so insignificant at first. Think about learning to play an instrument. The first time someone picks up a guitar, they dream of standing on stage, lights shining, crowds cheering. But what they face instead is sore fingertips, clumsy strumming, and awkward sounds that barely resemble music. Day after day, they repeat the same chords, the same scales, the same simple exercises. It feels dull, repetitive, even frustrating. But little by little, something shifts. Their fingers grow stronger, their movements smoother, the sounds more beautiful. After months, songs emerge where only noise once existed. The dream of standing on stage begins to take form not through one giant leap, but through hundreds of small, repetitive actions that at first felt meaningless. The same is true in fitness. No one builds strength by lifting one heavy weight a single time. Muscles don't transform overnight. They grow slowly, invisibly, rep by rep, set by set, workout by workout. The first push-up feels weak. The first run feels slow. The first squat feels awkward. But with each repetition, the body adapts. The invisible becomes visible. A month later, the push-ups feel easier. 3 months later, the runs are longer. 6 months later, people notice the change. A year later, the transformation is undeniable, and all of it came from showing up to do what felt boring. The daily grind of movement, the repetition of effort, the choice to do something small over and over again. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, said, "Success is a product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations." Most people underestimate the power of those daily habits because they don't see immediate results. Saving $5 a day feels pointless. Reading 10 pages a night feels too small. Meditating for 5 minutes feels insignificant. But multiply those actions over weeks, months, and years, and the compounding effect is extraordinary. $5 a day becomes nearly $2,000 in a year. 10 pages a night becomes 12 books. 5 minutes of meditation becomes a calmer, more resilient mind. The small things compound, and suddenly, the transformation looks massive. There's a story of a man who decided to get fit by committing to 1 push-up a day. Just 1. He told himself it was too small to fail. He didn't aim for 50 or 100 or even a full workout. Just 1. But something interesting happened. After 1 push-up, he often felt like doing 2, then 5, then 10. Some days it stayed at 1. Other days, it became a full workout. Over time, his body changed, his strength grew, and eventually, he transformed his health completely. It wasn't because he started big. It was because he started small and stayed consistent. That's the secret people don't want to hear. Greatness is built on the boring, tiny steps that no one claps for. Consider the story of students preparing for exams. Some cram everything into one desperate week, hoping for a miracle. Others review a little bit every day, slowly stacking knowledge, piece by piece. When exam day arrives, the crammers rely on stress and adrenaline. The steady ones rely on discipline and preparation. Who do you think walks in more confident? Who do you think remembers the material months later? Transformation happens not through last-minute bursts, but through steady, boring repetition. Even in relationships, this truth holds. A marriage doesn't stay strong because of one grand gesture or an expensive vacation. It stays strong because of small daily actions. Listening to each other, showing kindness, saying thank you, holding hands, being present. Those little things add up. Neglect them and the bond weakens. Nourish them, and the love grows deeper over time. Big transformations in relationships are nothing more than the accumulation of small, repetitive acts of love and respect. The problem is that our brains resist this truth. We are addicted to novelty, to excitement, to the rush of quick results. We start a new project with fire in our veins, but the moment it feels repetitive, we tell ourselves it's not working or it's not worth it. But the irony is, the boring part is where the magic hides. The boring part is where the roots grow, where the foundations are laid, where the unseen work sets the stage for the visible transformation. It's like a bamboo plant, which spends years growing roots underground before it shoots up tall and fast. To outsiders, it looks like nothing is happening. But underground, everything is happening. That's how transformation works. It's silent before it's visible. Think of Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world. His fortune wasn't built on sudden windfalls or wild bets. It was built on a small, consistent act of investing wisely, year after year, decade after decade. The compounding effect of his patience is what made him extraordinary. He once said, "Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." The tree doesn't appear overnight, but the small act of planting and watering creates a transformation that benefits generations. Now, reflect on your own life. How many times have you quit because progress felt invisible? How many diets abandoned after a few weeks because the mirror didn't show change? How many journals left half empty because the words didn't flow immediately? How many dreams shelved because the results weren't instant? The tragedy isn't that those dreams were impossible. The tragedy is that they were abandoned in the boring phase, the stage where small actions hadn't yet revealed their power. If you want transformation, you have to fall in love with the boring. You have to see the beauty in the repetition, the value in the small steps, the meaning in the quiet effort that no one applauds. Every time you do something small, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become. One workout is a vote. One page written is a vote. $1 saved is a vote. And the more votes you cast, the stronger your identity becomes. There's a quote that says, "People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures." That's the raw truth. Your future self is being built by what you do daily. Not what you dream of, not what you hope for, not what you talk about, but what you repeat. Transformation is not a lightning bolt. It's a brick wall built one brick at a time. Each brick looks small, but together they create something unshakable. So when life feels boring, when the actions feel small, when the progress feels invisible, remind yourself that this is exactly where transformation is being born. The small, repetitive steps are not wasted. They are compounding. And one day, you will look back, and what felt like nothing in the moment will reveal itself as everything. Discipline is not something you stumble upon when you feel like it. Discipline is built when you choose to act even when you don't feel ready, even when your body is tired, even when your mind screams for comfort. The greatest lie people tell themselves is that they need to feel motivated before they move. But motivation is like a guest. It comes and goes when it pleases. Discipline, however, is a house you build and live in. If you wait for motivation, you'll spend your life waiting. If you rely on discipline, you'll spend your life moving forward. Think of an athlete training for the Olympics. They wake up at 4 in the morning, often before the sun rises, and push their body through grueling routines. Do you think they feel motivated every day? Of course not. They are human, just like you. They wake up groggy. Their muscles ache. They want to stay under warm blankets like anyone else. But they get up anyway. Why? because their discipline is stronger than their feelings. They understand that the metal they dream of is forged in those dark mornings when no one is watching, when the world is still asleep, and when their own mind whispers, "Not today." The same is true for writers. There are days when words flow like a river, but there are also days when every sentence feels forced. Every page feels like pulling teeth. The disciplined writer doesn't wait for the muse to appear. They sit down regardless. They face the blank page, type the words, erase, rewrite, struggle, but they keep going. And because of that discipline, books get finished, stories get told, and impact is made. The undisciplined writer waits for inspiration, and years pass with nothing to show. Discipline is choosing to show up when it's inconvenient. It's go to gym after work when you'd rather collapse on the couch. It's saying no to fast food when you're tempted by the smell. It's staying focused on studying while your friends scroll endlessly on their phones. Discipline feels like sacrifice in the moment, but in reality, it is an investment. Every act of discipline plants a seed that grows into strength, confidence, and success. Jocko Willink, a former Navy SEAL, once said, "Discipline equals freedom." It sounds contradictory at first. How can discipline, which feels restrictive, equal freedom? But it makes perfect sense. When you discipline yourself to save money, you gain financial freedom. When you discipline yourself to eat well and exercise, you gain the freedom of health. When you discipline yourself to focus on work, you gain the freedom of choices in your career. Discipline doesn't trap you. It frees you from the prison of regret, the chains of laziness, the weight of missed opportunities. Imagine two people starting the same job. One shows up on time, does more than what's asked, learns skills outside of work hours, and constantly pushes themselves. The other shows up late, does the bare minimum, and avoids discomfort. Years pass, and one rises to leadership, while the other complains about being stuck. Was it luck? No, it was discipline. Luck may open a door, but discipline is what keeps it open. Think about people who wake up early every day to work on their dreams before heading to their regular job. They write, they build, they practice, they learn. No applause, no recognition, just raw discipline. Over time, their side project becomes their main project. People from the outside call them lucky or gifted, but they don't see the mornings of discipline that built the foundation for success. There's a painful truth in life. Your feelings don't care about your future. Feelings want what's easy now. They want pleasure, rest, comfort. Your future, however, is built by what you choose in the present. Discipline is the bridge between your current feelings and your future reality. Without it, dreams stay dreams. With it, dreams turn into results. Consider someone battling addiction. Every day, the craving calls out. Every day, the temptation is strong. Motivation may come and go, but what keeps them on the path of recovery is discipline. The discipline to say no, to avoid triggers, to call a sponsor, to attend a meeting, to take it one step at a time. That discipline is not glamorous. It's not loud, but it is life-saving. And the same principle applies to anyone striving for change. Discipline saves futures. Picture a young student who wants to become a doctor. The journey is long. Years of study, endless exams, countless sacrifices. Motivation fades quickly in such a marathon. But discipline keeps them opening books night after night, revising notes, practicing skills. Eventually, the day comes when they wear the white coat, and the world calls them doctor. That moment is glorious, but it is nothing more than a result of thousands of disciplined choices. The mind will always come up with excuses. It will tell you you're too tired, too busy, too unprepared. It will tell you tomorrow is better, or that missing one day won't matter. But discipline whispers a different truth. Today matters. This choice matters. Your future self is watching. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being relentless. It's about doing what you said you would do, especially when it's hardest. Discipline is also contagious. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, people notice. Your children see it. Your friends see it. Your colleagues see it. It inspires others to rise too. Just as laziness spreads, so does discipline. One disciplined act can ripple outward, influencing lives far beyond your own. You might think discipline is about strict schedules and endless rules, But it's really about love. It's about loving yourself enough to demand more, to care for your health, to protect your future, to respect your potential. It's about refusing to let your present comfort rob you of your future greatness. Discipline is the highest form of self-respect. There will be days when you fail, when you break the routine, when discipline slips. But the beauty of discipline is that it doesn't demand perfection, only persistence. You fall, you get back up. You stumble, you keep walking. You miss a day, you return the next. Over time, this rhythm builds resilience, and resilience builds strength. So when you don't feel like working, remember that discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what you want. When you feel tired, remember that discipline builds energy. When you feel unmotivated, remember that discipline doesn't depend on motivation. It's a choice, a muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it gets. One day, you will thank yourself for the discipline you showed today. You will stand in the life you dreamed of and realize it wasn't one lucky break. It was a daily grind, the repeated acts of discipline, the choices made when no one was watching. And that's when you'll understand discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is the very thing that creates it. Consistency is never a straight line. It's a journey filled with obstacles, setbacks, and moments that make you question if you're even capable of continuing. People often believe that success belongs to those who never stumble. But the truth is, success belongs to those who stumble and rise again, who fail and return stronger, who get knocked down and still find the strength to stand. Consistency is not about being perfect every single day. It's about refusing to quit even after you fall behind. Think about a child learning to walk. They don't stand up on their first try and stride across the room. They wobble, they fall, they cry, and then they try again. Over and over, they fail. But eventually, those small steps become steady ones. And soon they're running with laughter. Imagine if a child gave up the first time they fell. They would never walk. But children don't know how to quit, and that is why they succeed. Somewhere along the way, as adults, we forget this truth. We fall once and we think it's the end. But it's not the end. It's the beginning of resilience. There's a story of Thomas Edison who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." When inventing the light bulb, he faced endless setbacks. Most people would have quit after the 10th failure, maybe the 100th. But Edison's consistency wasn't destroyed by failure. It was fueled by it. Every mistake became information, every setback a stepping stone. And because he kept going, the world was changed forever. Now, picture a runner training for a marathon. They may stick to their schedule for weeks, but then one day, life gets in the way. Maybe they get sick, maybe an injury flares up, maybe work becomes overwhelming. They miss a run, then they miss another. Soon, doubt creeps in. I've ruined it. I'll never be ready. This is the crossroads where most people quit, thinking consistency is broken forever. But true consistency isn't about never missing. It's about returning after you miss. The runner who laces up their shoes after weeks off, even if the first miles feel slow and painful, is still consistent because they refuse to let setbacks define the end of their story. In your own life, think about the times you started something with fire in your heart, only to hit a wall. A new diet that crumbled after a weekend of indulgence. A journal left blank after a busy month. A dream project abandoned because you lost momentum. The easy path is to believe you failed. But the truth is, failure only becomes final when you decide to stop. Picking up again, even after a long pause, is still progress. It's not the perfect streak that matters. It's the refusal to give up entirely. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest athletes in history, once said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times, I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed." Think about that. The greatest basketball player in the world is defined not by the shots he made, but by the fact that he kept shooting after missing. His greatness was born out of persistence, not perfection. Consistency through setbacks is like climbing a mountain in a storm. The path gets slippery, the wind pushes you back, and sometimes you fall hard. But the only way you never reach the top is if you stop climbing. Every time you rise after a fall, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your circumstances. Every time you return after being knocked down, you build resilience. And resilience is the quiet power behind every great success story. There's a Japanese proverb that says, "Fall 7 times, stand up 8." That simple wisdom captures the essence of consistency. It acknowledges that you will fall. It doesn't sugarcoat it. Life will knock you down, harder than you expect, more often than you want. But standing up again, even when it hurts, even when it feels pointless, is what defines your future. Consider someone trying to recover financially after a major setback. They may lose their job, face unexpected bills, or fall into debt. In that moment, it feels hopeless. They may start saving, only to get hit with another emergency that wipes it all away. Many give up, believing they'll never get ahead. But the ones who slowly rebuild, dollar by dollar, choice by choice, eventually rise again. It takes years, sometimes decades, but that steady return, even after being knocked back, creates the freedom they once thought was impossible. Think of relationships, too. Every strong relationship faces storms, misunderstandings, arguments, betrayals, seasons of distance. Some give up at the first sign of difficulty. Others choose to fight for it, to rebuild trust, to show up again even after hurt. Those who stay consistent in love, even through pain, often find their bond becomes unbreakable. The setback didn't destroy them, it refined them. Even nature teaches this truth. After a forest fire, the land looks destroyed, ashes, smoke, silence. But underneath, seeds crack open, roots push deeper, life begins again. Years later, the forest grows back stronger, richer, more vibrant than before. Setbacks don't end the story. They often start a new one. The problem is, many of us expect progress to be smooth. We think success should look like an upward line on a chart. But real progress looks messy. It dips, it rises, it falls, it stumbles, and then it climbs again. Consistency is not about avoiding the dips. It's about not abandoning the climb when you're in the valley. So when you fail, when you relapse, when you break your streak, don't say, "I've ruined everything." Say, "This is part of the process." Stand up, begin again. Every comeback strengthens your character. Every return deepens your resilience. Every choice to continue builds the person you are becoming. There will be days when you feel like you're starting from zero again, and that can be discouraging. But remember this, you are never truly starting from zero. You carry the lessons of every attempt, every fall, every mistake. You carry the strength of every time you stood back up. You are further along than you think. Consistency through setbacks is what separates dreamers from achievers. Anyone can stay consistent when life is easy, when the sun is shining, when everything goes according to plan. But the ones who stay consistent when the storm rages, when motivation dies, when hope feels distant, those are the ones who eventually create something extraordinary. So the next time you fall, don't stay down. Don't let shame or guilt convince you that you're finished. Rise again, even if it's shaky. Begin again, even if it feels small. One step forward after failure is worth more than 100 steps you never take out of fear. Because in the end, consistency isn't measured by how many times you stood tall without falling. It's measured by how many times you stood up after being knocked down. And that willingness to rise again and again will carry you further than you ever imagined. You don't get tomorrow back. You don't get this moment again. Every second you wait, every excuse you believe, every time you say, "I'll start later," you push your future further away. Consistency doesn't live in someday. It lives in today, in this breath, in this choice, in this step you are about to take. You've fallen before. You've quit before. You've doubted yourself before. But now is the time to rise. Now is the time to stand. Now is the time to act. Not when you feel ready. Not when the stars align. Not when it's easy. But now. Because now is all you have, and now is all you need. Choose discipline over comfort. Choose persistence over excuses. Choose progress over perfection. One small action today, another tomorrow, then again the next day. That is how lives are rebuilt. That is how dreams are created. That is how greatness is born. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it. Don't wait for motivation. Move without it. Don't wait for permission. Give it to yourself. Every day, you are casting votes for the person you will become. So ask yourself, what kind of person will you choose to be when this speech ends, when you walk out that door, when life tests you tomorrow morning? Remember this. Consistency is not a talent. It's not a gift. It's not luck. Consistency is a choice. And if you choose it today, you will never live the same way again. Your support means everything if this resonated with you. Please share, and subscribe, because the difference between who you are and who you want to be is written in one line you will never forget. Force yourself to be consistent. Stop waiting. Stop delaying. Stop making excuses. Your future is built today, not tomorrow. Every step counts. Every choice matters. Every action shapes you. Remember this. Force yourself to be consistent, and the life you dream will be forced to show up. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.